Well, folks, this is Lindsey Huddleston with Sports Psychology Solutions back in the building. You're seeing some familiar faces and icon, myself, Lindsey Huddleston with SPS. The young man that's also on here is, in fact, Delano DJ Swift. He's not a stand-in. He just had a haircut, and this is how he looks without his long hair. And also, you see the symbol of the Northwestern Coast that represent our guy, Coach Orlando Watkins, who's done a great job of keeping this message going. But I'm going to defer to our super intern who is going to take us through not only today's mental toughness Zoom class, but our one next week before he heads back to the great Monmouth College. So with that, I'll defer to DJ Swift.
What's up, folks? It's DJ Swift here, intern at SPS. And got my guest here, Lindsey Huddleston, the founder of SPS, man, myth, legend. And we also have Orlando Watkins with us. And today, I wanted to bring up the topic of basically adapting to adversity, and also wanted to bring up the topic of coding. And if you don't know what coding is, the definition, let me look up I just had it on my phone. The definition of coding is here we go. The process of assigning a code to something for the purpose of classification or identification. So basically what that means is like how you get in a business setting, how you would talk to people in a business meeting would be different than how you talk to your friends. And I basically want to talk to you about how this summer we've really had to go through some adversity and how you've had to adapt with everything going on. I kind of want to ask you, how did everything change? What were your original plans, what you want to do with this summer, and then how you've had to really switch that up with even the internship and with the Zoom classes and how we haven't, had to adapt to our surroundings?
Wow, that's an excellent question, DJ. I can appreciate that. And the reason I tell you that is that's a very personal question for me, and it's requiring me to be a little transparent as we speak. Because to be honest, man, before COVID happened, like many others, I had different plans and expectations, even what you and I were going to be doing potentially this summer. I mean, you talk about great events like Moneyball. Shout out to Desmond Ferguson and Moneyball, the Moneyball program, which you would have been playing in. I would have been covering. Jack Ebling would have been in the building. I mean, so many multimedia opportunities. And I got to admit, it threw me off a little bit. And this also would have helped me transition into football, particularly with Michigan State University, new coach Mel Tucker, who I have a relationship with, being able to support the team, watch that. So thank goodness for technology and the Orlando Watkins of the world and us taking advantage of Zoom. I think Zoom has allowed us to be able to adapt, to be able to have some form of normalcy, to be able to be innovative, to continue to be ambitious. Because the first thing I did, man, when I woke up in this COVID world, when I knew I couldn't put the headset on and go and meet with people like you or go to Detroit and get up with Orlando and his teams, I used Zoom to connect. And that gave me a great amount of momentum throughout the summer. It even led to some new opportunities. I mean, I've just been announced as a new producer and director.
Congratulations.
Thank you, brother. The Fox 47, Jack Ebling's Press Pass, which is something, man, that I never would have thought about doing, even though as a member of the panel, I will go into the studio and I will see the producer, see the director, talk with him. I've even seen the transition, but I never put that out there. So I guess to kind of bring this full circle for the excellent question you posed, I think to be able to adapt to adversity, you have to be able to live without limits. You have to be able to not confine yourself in a box. You have to be able to have relationships with people, DJ, that when you start exploring somewhere different, either you're going to get their support or they're not going to get you in the way. And I'll get ready to wrap up with that. But I think that part is really important, man, because as creatures, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're married, whether you're just dealing with your family, we all want support from people around us. It's just human nature, Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at adapting and doing something different than what you've been expected to do, it's really important that either you get the support from people or you're okay to go that route without having that support. So with that, I'll defer back to you. I mean, that was a great question, by the way.
No, I mean, we've talked to a couple of people, like the young man after the Everett high school class, where he felt, he put a lot of hard work, but with just so much going on at the home, he felt he wasn't getting as much appreciation, and he wanted that little bit extra, just that little bit of support. So with that being said, I could feel you with how Zoom has really touched in, and that's been really supportive because, I mean, we canceled class after spring break. It was, you guys are back home and everything switched to online classing. It was all Zoom meetings and Zoom calls. And I mean, it was kind of tough. I mean, it was different because you're so used to, you had a plan out. This week is done. I'm going to go back and be right next to my friends again, get in class, and it just didn't happen. So, like, everything just switches up. I wanted to touch on the next topic, which I think is a little bit more in depth. Is what I talk about coding, and what I like to say about coding is I've heard some people call it camouflage, but when I'm around my friends, your lingo, your slang, the words you would say are a lot different than what you would be in a business meeting, so forth. So, what do you think on the aspect of people like adapting to their surroundings, or how would you respect somebody who's able to adapt there or be themselves? You know what I mean?
What you've done, DJ, you brought up, a very simple word, but speaks to the complex issues. And if we really go there, when you talk about coding, and as I grew up, we used the term code switching, which was kind of my generation's way of referencing it, meaning that you could grow up in a certain environment, maybe an urban environment, and you touched on language and things like that. That even goes to sports, because there's some code switching that has to take place when you want to become a recruit. I may have stated this to you, but I've often heard about college coaches who say they won't recruit somebody based on their Twitter handle, meaning that whatever terminology you use to describe yourself or reference you make, though it may be accepted amongst your peers, may be cool amongst your peers, the predominant society, mainstream America, may look down on that. So I think it's very important that code switch happens. But there's a level of authenticity that I think we all try to make. Right now, as a college student, you're coming into yourself as far as who you are. You're getting an idea of what you like, what you want to be exposed to. But you're also doing it with following all the rules. But as you get older and you create some equity in whatever it is you're doing, you allow your authentic self to be able to shine through more. And it's sad, man, because what code switching pretty much tells us is that there's a real and there's a fake, for lack of a better term. And whether it's hip hop culture or urban environment or anything dealing with non-mainstream America, nobody wants to be fake, right? It's all about, quote unquote, keeping it real, keeping it 100. Now, the challenge I have for young people, many of them and most of them are not in a position to keep it all the way real because they have not had enough life experiences to be able to put together a body of work to stand on. How can you keep it real when you need your parents to survive? How can you keep it real when you need that job to get by? How can you keep it real when you got a family to provide for? Now, the flip side of that is there's a level of authenticity you can have if it's rooted in the right kind of principles. Now, I can be myself. I can talk how I want to talk, but is that going to stop me from moving forward? So you make an excellent point when you talk about code switching. And one other thing I want to touch on that I think can bring this full circle when we were talking about the other question and now about having plans and conducting yourself a certain way. It's tough, man, when you have plans, DJ, and life gets in the way and you can't do what you want to do. And what happens is so many of us, and maybe it's myself, but I think it impacts others, we do not see our progress. We only see small movements. We don't see the big steps. And Lord forbid somebody on social media announce something that they did. Oh, my man just did that. Oh, she just did that. So what do we start doing, DJ? We start reflecting on ourselves. We start getting down on ourselves. Or I don't have this. So when you talk about plans changing and code switching, I think the reality is that the sooner you know who you want to be and what you want to do, the better. And once you do that, I think you have less and less code switching, because what people say is that's the authentic DJ. He can fit and move in any room. He can move in corporate America, or he can move in the hood. Now, here's the thing. Last thing I'll say, because you brought up an excellent point. It's great to be able to move in corporate America. That's the American way, to be able to move through your college campus, impact at your university, go on to the next level. And people may downplay the hood, but I tell you what, when we was out here standing in line for COVID, when we was out here in the streets, when it was dog eat dog, you better have the ability to manage where you go. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
as much as we can shoot for that corporate corner office and, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
pie in the sky, if you can't move among people and people respect you,
Right.
respond to you, if you can't go to the gas station and get out your car and pump gas without feeling like you're going to get preyed upon,
Mm-hmm.
then they got an issue. So I think there's something to be said about the ability to keep it corporate and also to be able to keep it cool too.
Yeah. I mean, you look at guys like Mav Carter, who basically made a way to the corporate level, but how he's done it, he's been himself. He's always been the raspy voice guy, but he made it there because he knew what he was talking about. So,
But also, let's talk about that. Maverick Carter, close confidant to LeBron James. But here's the thing. Every room Maverick walked in, they knew who's on his favorite list on his phone. They knew who his best friend was. So I think what you talked about right there with Maverick Carter is that he had leverage. His leverage was his relationship with LeBron. Now, God forbid him and LeBron falls out. Let's say they got a super beef and it's put out there to the world, Maverick Carter and LeBron James are no longer together. Matter of fact, it's put out to the world, and I know this is not the case, but as an example, Maverick Carter and LeBron James had a falling out over some bad business deals that Maverick did. Now, Maverick doesn't have that leverage. So I think what young people have to recognize, though Maverick's situation is kind of, so big because he's on the level of a billionaire like LeBron James, he still had to work to earn LeBron's trust. He still had to work to be able to bring things to the table. He still had to be able to close deals. And I think the problem that social media has impacted our lives in so many ways is that we lose the substance. I'm going to tell you a quick story, staying with your question. I remember when I had the opportunity to work for Governor Jennifer Granholm, first female governor in Michigan. She to Governor Whitmer, and shout out to Governor Whitmer and both Governor Granholm. I remember saying to myself as a young African-American male, when you talk about code switching, I wore a suit every day. I would be in some of the most, influential rooms based on me being in close proximity to the governor. Because when I had that role, I was literally with her. People would say, when we see you, we expect to see the governor. So, of course, my code switch was in full effect to be able to navigate rooms. But also what brought value to me working for her is that I can take her on a beauty and barbershop tour down 7 Mile in Detroit, my hometown. I could go up in the beauty and barbershop on a campaign and talk to people and say, hey, man, do you want her to come in? And they can say yes, no. I can get with the Thunderbird Car Club that my late brother was a member of and get 20 Thunderbirds to drive down the street. That brought me value to her. Because she would go to me and be like, Lindsay, let's do this, let's do that, which were things that everybody in the administration either weren't capable of or had no desire to do. So what I want to caution any young person going forward, it's good to be both able to, as you say, code switch and be in a corporate America and be cool in the hood. But at the end of the day, what I did for Governor Granholm, they can rely on me for following through. And I think that is something that many people miss out on. I think that's a concept that you understand as a student athlete. You know that in order to be successful, you have to follow through. And I think sometimes, and you tell me what you think about this as I close on this one, so many young people look at social media and see the imagery and think the imagery is all it takes and don't look at the substance you have to put into that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we've talked about it on numerous of these Zoom calls, how everybody doesn't see all the work that's put in behind the camera. They see the finished product and think that they can just be the finished product without touching any of that work. And it's not possible. It's not possible.
And I like that comment you make, kind of, piggybacking on the comment of me taking a role on director and producer. Many people just say, you've been in the studio, you've been in there, you've seen us on set. It's cool to be able to just get in front of the camera and talk and all these things. But the need for a great producer, a great director, a great graphics guy, a great, set director, all these other things. I mean, the show cannot happen without these people. Now, what you do is you start moving to a point where you got to say, okay, well, I'm not the man in front of the camera. What about all these other things that I can do? And I think people have to realize, man, that it's not all glimmer and gold all the time. But I just think as you get older, or as I should say more mature, you can appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to touch on your book a little bit and go along with changing plans. And beginning the book, talk about how you started off at Walmart. All right?
Yeah.
Now you're here.
Yeah.
Did you ever think you would be here while you were working at Walmart?
let me tell you something, man. I was very fortunate growing up in a single parent household in Detroit. You know, my mother was a single mom. You know, we were lower middle class. I won't say we were poor. I was very
Hmm.
fortunate because of my mom and her work ethic, and my late grandmother, Madeline Bryant, you know, who I named my daughter after. Together, they looked out for us. Now, I did see poor. I mean, there was a couple cats in my neighborhood that, you know, we were well off compared to them. But, you know, when I had the opportunity to go work for Walmart, DJ, it was a
Hmm.
six-figure opportunity, man. Something I never had before, something a lot of people don't have. You know, company
Wow.
card, expense account, and they wanted me. They were literally recruiting me. And I remember when I signed my contract, I felt
Hmm.
like I got drafted, DJ. I was in the office, I was, you know, signing it, and my bank account was on boom. But what happened, DJ, is that after a while, and you make a good point when you say, did I see myself being here? I began to feel that I wasn't really following my real path. I think what happens a lot of times, a lot of people have great ideas, but they're scared to jump off the porch, if you will. They're scared
Hmm.
to take a chance. And in my particular case, being a family man at the time, I was married, my daughter had just been born. You know, we
Hmm.
want what we call that stability, which I think is
Right.
not even a real word. Safety, I don't even think that's a real word. We call ourselves, okay, you want to talk about, is safety a real word? Did we all feel safe before COVID happened? So that
Yes.
tells you right there. So what I did, you know, DJ, and I think you're gonna have this opportunity too, is I looked at, you know, what's my real passion? What do I really want to do? Because when you get to a point, man, where you hate going to your job, I don't think that's
Hmm.
something people should have to do it for years and years and decades because they got to take care of their family. Now,
Right.
I'm still in a position to take care of my daughter. I'm still in a position to provide. But I had to step out, man, on what I was truly feeling. And, you know, I just had different things I wanted to accomplish. But I think that comes with having a certain form of confidence, the right kind of support around you. And I'm grateful because I ended up leaving Walmart. I ended up going back to corporate America, as I say in the book. But when I went
Hmm.
back to corporate America, they closed their doors. Something happened again. You know, I thought I was going back to a safe six-figure job again. They called one
Right.
day and said it's a wrap. So as you know in the book, that's when I had looked into USA basketball, was able to get involved with them for a few years, travel the country, be part
Hmm.
of the team, and you know really hone my craft to what I'm sharing now. And I'm so grateful because here it is, COVID-19 and the aftermath of that, and I am completely in this field that I want to be in, completely doing the things I want to do. And I think it would have been really difficult to be trying to transition from corporate America, forced to unforced, to try to do that now.
Right. I mean, that just goes to show how it could be the biggest change or the smallest change, and how you got to adapt to what you really feel, you know, and if as you think is right.
Well, you know, on social media, there's a hashtag that goes around on Instagram called "Bet on Yourself." Man, I think that's one of the best, you know, hashtags going because if you think about it, man, entrepreneurship, and it may be different for you because you're just growing into your collegiate world and be getting out
Hmm.
there, but I don't think entrepreneurship has ever been promoted as much as it's being promoted right now.
Oh, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure. I follow guys like Gary. You know Gary V.
of course.
Oh yeah, I follow him. Like I watch YouTube videos about everybody's trying to be, and I mean YouTube's a big thing now. That's entrepreneurship. Everybody is making money off of what they're playing, what game they're doing, whatever they can sell. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Damon Dash, I think, said it best, and I am a Dame disciple, Damon Dash fan. I've always been, you know, even though he may come across to people very rough, but the reality is that I accept his message. He said the internet changed the game, man. The internet
Hmm.
allowed for direct-to-consumer type work. Even look at us. Look at what SPS has been able to grow through. In that, a great young man like yourself, coming from a great family with your mom and dad, who in some way or form thought the idea of you coming on board with me was a good idea because I've been able to establish something using the internet. We got great people like Coach Orlando Watkins who's using this to get our message out far and wide beyond what I normally would have been doing, had the capability to do, or just a
Hmm.
desire to do. But all that is happening. You are going to be able to go back to school, be on campus, but still be able to do screen learning. All this based on taking advantage of the internet and not letting the
Right.
internet take advantage of us. So there's really no excuse. I think the biggest problem people have, DJ, people don't want to put in that work. But the thing I'll say to that, the reason why it's so important, I talk about this in the book, I talk about this all the time. Find out what your true North Star is. Find out what you're really passionate about. Even if it's one of those things that people can say, oh man, it's going to take you a long time. You'll never make any money doing that. But if you're passionate about what you do, you're never working. You're always just living your life and you have success. So I think I'm an example of that. I mean, just
Right.
before I called, I was on with Jack Ebling. I was on with Xavier Tillman, who is now putting his hat in the ring for the NBA draft. I mean, to be able to have these calls and these conversations, I was just texting back and forth with one of the young men, Jack Hoiberg at Michigan State, who just got a scholarship. I mean, to have these relationships all came down to me stepping out on faith and being in this position. I'm still able to provide, still able to live the life that I want, and
Right.
hopefully inspire other people.
You know, I've heard people say before that, you know, if you have a passion, there's no way in the world you're the only person who has that passion. There's bound to be somebody who wants to hear or be involved in what you're doing. So why not put that out there for the world to at least get a chance to look at it, give it a chance. If you don't put it out, there's no chance.
But what people don't want to do, DJ, people don't like working in the rain, man. They don't like, putting in work when there's no accolades. I think sometimes there's a direct correlation between social media and success. And people say, well, I want to, do something and I want to get accolades on social media. And they kind of do that to drive what they're doing, as opposed to saying, you know what, let me put this work in. And in my particular case, I use social media as a tool for my brand, because people can say, oh, well, pretty much, if Lindsay's going to post something, it's going to be post something that's positive. It's sports related. It's related to mental toughness. It's related to mental health. And I'm very careful with that. So whatever I put up is consistent with that. But, at the end of the day, man, you can't really look at your success and base your success off another man or a woman. You got to base your success off what's important to you. Now, what happens is from time to time, you get those, unsung hero type, recognitions where something comes out and it goes out real big. I know, for example, when I post things about you and I maybe playing golf, the support you get from social media lets people know, oh, okay, people are feeling what's going on. That's some great energy. However, I would say this to any person, young or older, you cannot let social media drive you. You mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk. He made an excellent point. He said, don't let your likes or subscribers drive you. Let the passion for your content drive. Because here's the flip side, as you know it, you can look at somebody with a gang of subscribers and they are robots. It's not really real people. So I think there's a very fine line with that. I remember having a situation where we were going to be doing a podcast at a restaurant in town, and the lady made a comment because we gave the wrong number as far as how many people were following us on social media for another platform. And it was a lower number, but she went on to say, I would never want, that lower number. It was like, lady, we could have easily fooled you and just inflated those number of followers to look like something, and you would have been on the hook for that. So, that's an example I can give about not getting too caught up in how many followers. It's just about the quality of the content.
Right. I mean, my dad talked about that with me about not chasing the money, not chasing the materialistic things, because that will come with your passion, and looking out to God gonna look out for you. You're doing the right thing, or you're being a good man, and then you follow your passion. It's gonna come to you.
Well, let me speak to that, DJ. And your dad's a really wise man, and man I respect, and he's absolutely right. But what I experienced is there comes that time where you want to make the money, then you want to be able to determine, okay, do I want to follow the money or follow my passion? It's almost like you got to get fed up with the money. You got to be able to get the money to be able to say, okay, it's not about all that. Because had I never gone to corporate America, not once, but 2 times, had I never got corporate checks that put me in the 6-figure bracket, I don't think I could be at a point where I could say it's not about the money. Now, for you as a young man coming out, yeah, you want to follow your passion, but, you also want to get a payday. You deserve to be able to get those things. But I think what corporate America has showed me, and I always say this, I said it to a good friend of mine right before he started to run for office. He's a judge now in Ohio. Happy for him, Brother Hamilton, that is. I said, if a company can pay me $100,000, I can make $1 million on my own. Master P talked about that in the No Limit Chronicles. He said, if Jimmy Iovine, who didn't even know me, wanted to offer me $1 million, how much am I really worth? So you got to think about it. We can go out here and get these degrees, DJ, and go to these schools and then go on and get jobs making 70, 80, 90, 100 plus thousand. How much are you really worth? How much are you really worth? And it doesn't mean that you're going to come out and just get that immediately, but I look at it as a 10-year plan. I look at it that, my daughter's 8. In 10 years when she's 18, off to college like you, You know, what kind of lifestyle will I have for her? What will be there for her? And I think that people get it twisted because they try to look at the short term and they'll be like, man, I want to kill it by this summer. By this summer,
Right.
I'm going to kill her. Man, you got
Patience.
to put in a couple summers to do that, you know, and
Yeah.
then when things don't happen the way you want, you know, how are you going to respond to the setback? So those are some
Right.
things you got to think about.
And that's a little bit of that adversity for some people. They can't seem to get past the wait phase, the patient phase. You just got to be a little patient, and it'll come to you.
Man, a little patient, you got to be a lot of patient, you know, because a
Yeah.
little patient, you know, is like, okay, a setback, but you know, what about, you know, you hear these stories whenever. I love watching documentaries, DJ, and that may be another step that SPS takes when we use our, you know, platform and sports media services to really tell inspiring stories. But every story of success, man, there's adversity. I mean, you brought up an excellent point. And the more adversity people experience, it seems like that's equitable to the amount of success that they have. You know, people
Mm-hmm.
who really, really been down, who really came from hardship, who really had to overcome a lot, probably are the people that, you know, went on to become the most successful. You don't
Mm-hmm.
want, I don't wish easy on nobody. And I don't mean that in a bad way. This is not one of those misery loves company type thing. But I
Mm-hmm.
know, as my godfather, Ernest McCoy, would tell me, he would say, I'm not telling you what I heard, I'm telling you what I know. When you go that path, when you got to walk down there in the valley, you know, with
Mm-hmm.
the shrubs and the bushes and the insects and all the creatures, when it's not
Mm-hmm.
glamorous, when you walk that route, you don't forget, man.
Yeah.
And as a young person like yourself, you know, adversity is good because I
Yeah.
know it sounds so cliche. It builds character, but it does. What is
Yeah.
character? Character is what you do when you're down. Your
Mm-hmm.
character comes out. You know, people like to say, "Oh man, you know, you give him some alcohol, he'll be a problem." No, that he's just a reflection of who he really is.
Right.
Either you go drink something and go off in the corner and fall asleep and wake up the next day with a little headache, or you go tear the place up, which is
Right.
a reference to who you are. So I say all that to say, man, you know, social media allows us to present our best self, the best
Mm-hmm.
version of ourselves. If we got to take that picture 100 times to get the right version. But the reality is that to be the best version of yourself, you got to go through some trials and tribulations. And it's not to
Right.
say that you want to put all your trials and tribulations out for everybody to see, but it is
Mm-hmm.
important that you recognize that this trial and tribulation is meant for me to be the best version of myself. And if I'm rooted in
Right.
some faith, if I really believe what I'm doing, hell, you might as well follow your plan and your passion and do what you want to do because you got to go through
Right.
hell to get there no matter what. So you might as well do it for what you want. So with that being said, don't let adversity stop you. Let adversity
Right.
be your motivator, you know? Put it
Yeah.
this way. If you're going through some adversity, that means you're getting closer.
See, I'd have to say my hardest part of adversity was definitely transferring.
Okay.
You know, I mean, my coming up, my parents, they kept it real good for me. They made sure I had food on the table, nice warm house and clothes, and also I never really had a problem with, you know, no drug problem, gang violence, nothing really like that. I lived in the hood on my mom's side, but she made sure that I was not messing with nobody out there. And my dad was the same way, but then having to move down to Kalamazoo and leave them and stay with my grandmother. And then unfortunately, with health reasons, my grandmother, I couldn't stay with her. So then I was scrambling, trying to find a place. I ended up staying with a family friend to finish out my last couple of years. But just those 2 years away from home, where I was essentially on my own. You know, they would send me money, and I would go buy groceries for me for that week, or I had some money in my pocket. You know what I mean? So that was life for 2 years for me. It was almost like early college. My dad called it prep school. Like,
Yeah,
I went to early prep school.
Now check it out. When they sent you that money, why didn't you go buy some new J's? Why didn't you go buy some gear and be fresh?
I ain't need it.
Yeah.
I didn't need it. I needed food, but I didn't need no J's.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I've always been good with money, though. I feel like that's always been something since a young age. I remember my dad used to get mad at me because all the birthday money, everybody else would be spending it on candy and stuff, and he'd come up and check my piggy bank, and I got all folded, tucked away. I didn't touch it for months. It's just
sitting
sitting
on it.
there.
That's good. But
Yeah.
you know, I think what you touched upon also, DJ, I mean, your life is an example. The sooner you experience adversity, the better off you were for that. Because the adversity of you changing environments at such a young age and leaving probably helped you find success once you got to college. Because we all know in most cases, college is the first time that people went away. But as your dad said, you had a prep school experience. So when you got there, you weren't all like, oh, I'm on my own. I mean, you were actually further away from home. You know, you had already dealt with responsibility. You knew the importance of what you had to do. So that adversity you had as a junior and senior in high school better prepare you, don't you think?
Right. I definitely think so. Well, I'm not going to keep you much longer. We've about hit our time limit. I just want to thank you for being my guest today on the weekly Zoom call, Mental Toughness. This is DJ Swift signing out with SPS, with Lindsey Huddleston, Orlando Watkins. Thank you for always being there. And thank you guys for listening in. Have a good one.
Excellent job. Excellent job.